Hello and welcome to Casual Learning. I'm your host, John Bannan. Today I'm going to do a video on how to make delicious French crab quiche. Now this is an authentic French recipe I got from a book by Julia Child, and it's delicious. It's a slight modification of what Julia Child makes. Namely, I put crab in it. And you'll see how wonderful this dish really is. So what do? Well, the first thing you do is you saute 4 tablespoons of butter with 8 ounces of crab meat. So, for instance, here's a can of crab meat. This is a 16-ounce can, so I'll make 2 quiches using this 1 can. And so you put a half a can basically in, and you saute it. So while it's sauteing, you put in some salt, some pepper, some tarragon. The tarragon is very important. It gives it a lot of important flavor. And then once it's been sauteed a bit, then you pour in 1/4 of a cup of dry French white vermouth. For instance, here's a Martini and Rossi dry, extra dry white vermouth. Although this is, I believe this is Italian, that works just as well as the French. It has a wonderful aroma, great aroma, and you boil it for 30 seconds. It gets rid of the alcohol, but it leaves that delicious vermouth flavor. So let's start sauteing. So I'm going to take you over to the stove. So as you can see, I'm going to put it on. We're going to saute it, so I'll put it on 8, basically medium high. And the first thing we're going to do is going to melt butter in this. So you take a half a stick butter, which is 4 tablespoons, and you melt that. So here's my half a stick of butter. This is salted butter. I don't think it makes any difference whether it's salted or unsalted. Put that in there. Let that melt a bit. So I'm just swirling the butter around the bottom of the pan to help distribute the heat on the butter, which makes it melt faster. Butter is melting pretty quickly. You can see that. And once it's just about fully melted, you can spoon in your crab meat. Now you don't want to overcook the butter. You don't want to brown butter. You're not trying to burn the butter. You just want it to melt, really. And you need that liquid in there because this crab meat's going to absorb a lot of that liquid. So I'm going to put the crab meat in now. And that's empty. So I just Spread that crab meat throughout the butter, pushed it down some so it looks like this. Now I'm going to season it. So I'm going to put some salt in it, a pinch of salt. Now I'm going to coat it with some pepper, fresh ground pepper, just to go around, give it a little coating. And then coat it with some tarragon. This is important. This gives it a very distinct flavor. So just coat it with some tarragon. And then continue to allow it to heat. Because when you put the vermouth in there, the vermouth has to boil pretty instantaneously when you pour it in. It only boils for 30 seconds, and then you turn it off the heat. So the pan needs to be hot in order for that vermouth to boil that quickly. So you should hear some sizzling in the pan so that you know it's hot enough to boil that vermouth off in 30 seconds. You know, if there's steam coming up, I'm starting to get a little bit of steam. That's an indicator that it's getting hot. I'll give you a peek at it, see what it looks like. You can start to hear it. All right, so I hear it bubbling now. The crab meat is softened up some. So I think it's probably hot enough now to boil off that vermouth. So again, take a quarter cup of vermouth. Pour that in there and count to 30. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. I'm going to do the rest of it in my head for you. So mix that around, and you want the alcohol to evaporate. But it should start to boil. All right, I can see that vermouth starting to boil. And I can hear it making a lot of steam. You don't want it too watery. It's okay if you do this for more than 30 seconds. If it was really hot, it would be done in 30 seconds. If it's not as hot, maybe it'll take a minute. Now, this is the wonderful flavoring and odor to this particular quiche. It's all in this crab, vermouth, tarragon mix. That's where the magic happens. So you want to make sure you do this right. All right, so that's been long enough, and you can see what it looks like. And now we're going to put it in the pie dish. Okay, so what's the second step? Oh, add a quarter cup dry white French vermouth and boil for 30 seconds. We did that. Number 3, strew the crab into a pre-baked deep dish pie shell. Okay, so Just get yourself a frozen deep dish pie shell and then pre-bake it. There should be instructions on the pie shell box or package that tells you how long to cook it in order to pre-bake it. Pre-bake it probably will take no more than 10 minutes at maybe 375. So this is a pre-baked pie shell. So you have to do this in advance before you make the quiche. So now what we do is we simply take the crab mixture and we simply dump it in the pre-baked pie shell. Get all that expensive, good crab out of that pan, put it in there, and then just move this crab evenly around the bottom of the dish, of the pie shell, like that. It'll be a little bit moist, but that's okay. Now, next to our next step. Then you want to make the custard. And you're going to pour this custard into the crab meat and into the pie shell. And that'll be the base for your quiche. So you have to make the custard first. It's not a cooked custard I'm talking about. I'm basically talking about raw eggs and cream. So what you want to do is you mix 3 large eggs and enough heavy cream to make about 1.5 cups of liquid. And then you're going to pour that liquid into the pre-baked pie shell with the crab in it, and you're going to fill it up to about 1/8 of an inch from the rim. And that should be about 1.5 cups of liquid. It may be a little bit more, it may be a little bit less. So let's see what happens. So first thing you want to do is you want to get 3 eggs. So we take 3 large eggs. Put them in the bowl. Then mix these eggs up. Scramble them. Okay, now we're going to have to add the heavy cream, but we need about 1.5 cups total. So get yourself a measuring glass like this or cup and pour the eggs in. Now we can read off the side as we pour the heavy cream in to indicate that there's 1.5 cups of liquid in here. So this is the heavy cream, and I would stay away from using light cream or milk. You definitely want to get some heavy cream, also known as whipping cream. So I'm going to pour this in here until we get to 1.5 cups. Okay. Now I'm going to mix that up. And this is what is your custard. You're creating a custard. So it should end up kind of looking like eggnog when you're done mixing it. Okay, so the next step is we pour the custard into the shell within 1/8 of the top of or the brim of the shell. You don't want to go over because then it's going to spill over in the oven. It's going to make a mess. So you want to make sure it's no more than 1/8 of an inch to the top of the pie shell. What I'll often do is I'll just take a pizza pan and I'll put the pie shell on the pizza pan. That way you can hold the pizza pan and putting it in the oven instead of the pie pan itself, which is kind of flimsy, and this makes a much more stable foundation for it. So So we take our cup and a half of liquid and we just pour it right in. Here's our custard. Notice it doesn't go over the rim. That's good. Now there's one last ingredient to this quiche, and that is you sprinkle some shredded Swiss cheese on top. And that's important because it gives it a lot of flavor and it gives it a nice golden brown color. So I would get some good Swiss cheese, well-aged Swiss cheese. This Swiss cheese has been aged over 120 days. It's from Switzerland, so that's pretty good. And you want 3 tablespoons of this stuff, shredded. So you get your handy mandolin or shredder. I've got a grating insert in there. You could use a grater too. And then we're just going to shred up 3 tablespoons of Swiss cheese. So let's look. It looks like maybe we've got about 2 tablespoons there. Let's just keep going. Yeah, that looks like 3 tablespoons. I'm just eyeballing it. It's okay whether you're not perfect in your measurement. It'll work out. So then what we do is we take the shredded Swiss cheese and we just sprinkle it on top of the quiche like this, all around. Don't get any of it on the pie crust itself. Just get it into the custard area, like this. And you want to make sure that those cheese slices or shredded cheese are submerged into the custard, because otherwise they're going to burn on top. So make sure they're submerged in the custard. So I just push them down. Make sure that happens. All right, there you go. Now, you take this and you put it in a preheated oven set at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and then cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes. Put it in the middle rack of the oven. And when that's done, you have a warm, delicious quiche. You can let the quiche, take it out of the oven, let it sit for 5-10 minutes. It's going to be nice and warm and delicious. And it'll look like this. This is one I made earlier. I took it out of the oven. It's still warm. And in fact, when I'm done this video, I'm going to eat it. Let me show you what it looks like. See, so it's a nice golden brown. The custard fully gelled, so it's not raw. And that's some of that cheese is melted up there, so you can see it. And then to serve it, all you do is you serve it like a pie. So you get yourself a knife and you cut it like a pie, just like that. Just a slice of pie, and I got a pie knife. I'll take this piece out. First piece is always the toughest piece because it usually doesn't cooperate. But there you go. Does that look nice? It's the beauty of this quiche is it's flavorful. It is probably the best quiche you'll ever have. Quiche is good, but this is especially good. So take a bite. There's some warm, tasty vermouth flavored crab meat on the bottom, followed by a layer of custardy goodness and cheese with a browned top, and not to mention the pastry of the shell itself. Wow, that is good stuff. I know some people don't like crab meat or fish. But for those people who do, this is a delicious, delicious way to use lump crab meat. Wow, fantastic. All right, so make yourself some French crab quiche. You'll never regret it, and it tastes delicious. So I hope you learned something, and take care.